Palace insiders just leaked something explosive. King Charles is reportedly furious with Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and what happened behind closed doors could change everything. If you want to stay ahead of the biggest political stories breaking right now, hit subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you is sending shockwaves through Westminster and could reshape British politics forever. Here's what actually happened, and why this story is far more dangerous than anyone realises. 3 weeks ago, Keir Starmer made a move that blindsided Buckingham Palace and created a constitutional crisis that's still unfolding. Without consulting the King's advisors, Starmer publicly handed Donald Trump a personal invitation from King Charles for a state visit. But here's the problem. That invitation was supposed to be private, carefully managed, and strategically timed. The moment Starmer pulled out that sealed envelope in the Oval Office, with cameras rolling and the world watching, he crossed a line that no British Prime Minister has dared to cross in decades. He turned what should have been delicate royal diplomacy into a public political stunt. Sources inside the palace are calling it a complete cock-up. Senior royal advisors, who spoke on condition of anonymity, described the scene at Buckingham Palace when they learned what Starmer had done. The King's private secretary reportedly said, "This is not how we do things." Translation: Starmer had just violated centuries of protocol. But here's what makes this story truly explosive. The King wanted a quiet, behind-the-scenes approach to managing Trump's second presidency. Palace sources reveal that Charles had specifically requested what they called a more leisurely and considered approach to any Trump visit. They wanted to start small, maybe a working visit, some private meetings, gradually building up trust. Then, if things went well, they could consider a full state visit sometime in 2026 or even 2027. Starmer? He ignored all of that. He pushed for an immediate full state visit in September 2025, just months into Trump's presidency. Why? Because Starmer needed a quick political win, and he was willing to use the royal family to get it. The timing couldn't have been worse. Just days before Starmer's Oval Office performance, Trump had made those shocking comments about making Canada the 51st US state. He wasn't joking around. He was serious enough to suggest using economic force to make it happen. This put King Charles, who is not just the British monarch, but also Canada's head of state, in an impossible position. Think about this for a moment. The King of Canada is now supposed to host a dinner for the American president who's threatening to absorb Canada. It's like being asked to serve tea to someone who's planning to take over your house. Constitutional experts are calling this a nightmare scenario. Palace sources describe this as a huge conundrum. One insider told reporters that Charles feels Starmer has put him in a constitutionally problematic situation that could damage the monarchy's relationship with Canada and other Commonwealth nations. The King, who's supposed to remain politically neutral, now has to host a leader making active threats against a nation he serves as head of state. But the story gets even more twisted. Royal correspondent Nanda Cameron Walker, who has deep sources inside the palace, reports that the King is not happy with how this played out. But it's not just about hurt feelings or bruised protocol. The carefully managed relationship between Downing Street and the palace, built on centuries of tradition and mutual respect, is now under serious strain. Here's what's really happening behind the scenes. The palace has its own foreign policy priorities. They work quietly with the Foreign Office, maintaining relationships that transcend party politics. The royal family is Britain's ultimate soft power weapon. They can open doors that politicians can't. But that only works if they maintain their reputation for dignity, neutrality, and careful diplomacy. Starmer's stunt put all of that at risk. Instead of leveraging royal soft power strategically, he turned it into a cheap political photo opportunity. Royal biographers are already comparing this to some of the worst moments in modern royal political relations. The fallout has been immediate and brutal. Social media erupted, with criticism of Starmer's handling of royal protocol. Comments ranged from calling it cringeworthy to accusing the Prime Minister of acting like a lapdog, while waiting for Trump to open the King's letter like it was some kind of game show reveal. But the social media reaction is just the surface. The real damage is happening in Britain's diplomatic circles. Embassy officials in Washington reportedly cringed when they saw Starmer's performance. Career diplomats who've spent decades building Britain's reputation for sophisticated statecraft watched their Prime Minister turn royal diplomacy into reality TV. Constitutional experts are sounding the alarm. Professor Sarah Matthews from Oxford University explains, when the palace and Downing Street are at odds, it undermines the entire constitutional framework. The monarchy's effectiveness depends on seamless cooperation with the government. This kind of public disagreement creates instability. Dr. Robert Hazel from University College London's Constitution Unit goes further. Prime ministers forget that they serve at the pleasure of the Crown, not the other way around. Starmer has treated the king like a political prop, and that's dangerous territory for any government. What makes this even more explosive is the broader context of Starmer's leadership. His Labour government is already facing massive criticism over free speech crackdowns, with people being jailed for social media posts. The economy is struggling, public services are failing, and now he's alienated the one institution that transcends party politics, the monarchy itself. This isn't just about protocol, it's about power and respect. Starmer essentially forced the king's hand, overruling palace preferences to serve his own short-term political agenda. He needed to strengthen UK-US relations fast, prove he could work with Trump, and he used the royal family as his trump card, literally. The king's response has been telling: complete silence. No public statements defending Starmer, no royal tours to distract from the controversy, no appearances at government events. Just quiet meetings with constitutional advisors at Balmoral and terse, formal communications through official channels. That silence, according to royal watchers, speaks volumes. It's the equivalent of a royal cold shoulder, a diplomatic deep freeze that previous prime ministers have learned to fear. When the palace goes quiet, it usually means they're seriously unhappy. Royal historian Dr. Anna Whitelock explains the significance. The monarch's silence is a powerful weapon. It signals disapproval without creating a constitutional crisis. Charles is letting Starmer know that trust has been broken, but he's doing it in a way that maintains royal dignity. Meanwhile, Trump seems completely oblivious to the constitutional crisis he's walked into. He's accepted the state visit invitation and appears excited about getting the full royal treatment: the horse guards, the state banquet, the golden carriage ride. But behind the scenes, palace staff are reportedly scrambling to figure out how to host a president who's actively threatening a Commonwealth nation. The logistics alone are a nightmare. How do you write a state banquet speech that welcomes someone who's threatening to absorb Canada? How do you maintain the special relationship while protecting the Commonwealth? These are questions that royal protocol experts have never had to answer before. The September deadline is approaching fast, and pressure is mounting. The king will have to decide whether to go through with hosting Trump despite his threats to Canada, or find a way to diplomatically postpone, which could create an international incident and further embarrass Starmer's government. For Starmer, this could be a career-defining mistake. He gained short-term political points with Trump, and maybe impressed some voters who want Britain to cozy up to America. But he did it at the cost of seriously damaging his relationship with the monarchy, an institution that most Britons still respect and trust more than politicians. In Britain, that's not a trade most prime ministers would make willingly. The monarchy's approval ratings consistently hover around 60 to 70%, while politicians struggle to break 40%, alienating an institution that popular shows either incredible political naivety or dangerous arrogance. The international implications are staggering. Commonwealth leaders are watching this situation closely. If the king appears to endorse Trump's threats against Canada by hosting him with full honours, it could damage relationships with dozens of nations where Charles serves as head of state. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has already made subtle comments about the importance of respecting Commonwealth sovereignty. Canadian officials, while publicly diplomatic, are privately concerned about what message a lavish Trump state visit would send. The question now is whether this rift can be repaired. Palace sources suggest the king is willing to work with Starmer. They have to, it's their constitutional duty. But trust has been seriously damaged. Future communications between Downing Street and Buckingham Palace will likely be much more formal, guarded, and transactional. Royal biographer Robert Jobson predicts lasting consequences. Charles has a long memory. This kind of breach doesn't just disappear, it changes the dynamic permanently. Starmer may find the palace much less cooperative on future initiatives. What happens next could reshape British politics for a generation. If the royal family loses confidence in Starmer's government, it creates ripple effects throughout the establishment. The civil service, the diplomatic corps, even the military, they all take cues from the palace's relationship with the government. The monarchy's soft power is one of Britain's greatest diplomatic assets. From opening trade doors to mediating international disputes, the royal family provides access and influence that money can't buy. Alienating the king could have consequences far beyond Westminster, affecting everything from post-Brexit trade deals to Britain's role in international organisations. Conservative opposition leaders are already sensing blood in the water. Former Foreign Secretary Liz Truss called Starmer's handling of the situation amateur hour diplomacy. Even more moderate Conservative voices are questioning whether Starmer has the diplomatic sophistication needed to lead Britain on the world stage. But the most damaging criticism is coming from within Labour's own ranks. Senior Labour MPs, speaking anonymously, expressed concern about Starmer's judgment. One shadow minister reportedly said, "You don't mess with the monarchy. It's political 101. Either he doesn't understand that or he doesn't care. Both options are worrying." The Trump visit is still scheduled for September, assuming it happens at all. Whether it becomes a successful diplomatic reset or the next flashpoint in this royal political battle remains to be seen. Palace officials are reportedly working on contingency plans for different scenarios, from a scaled-back visit to outright cancellation. This story is developing by the hour, and the mainstream media is only telling you part of what's really happening. The full extent of the palace's anger, the diplomatic chaos behind the scenes, the constitutional crisis that's brewing, they're not reporting any of it. What do you think? Did Starmer cross the line by blindsiding the king and turning royal diplomacy into a political stunt? Or is this exactly the kind of bold leadership Britain needs in dealing with Trump? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want to stay ahead of the biggest political stories before they hit the headlines, before the spin doctors get to them, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. The next few months are going to be absolutely wild, and you'll want to be first to know what's really happening behind the palace gates.